All right, now let's check the streaming page to see what's going on.
Okay. Refresh the page here.
Oh, something's happening. I think. Yeah, I think it's doing. I think it's doing.
Yeah, no, it says started streaming less than a minute ago.
All
Me
right,
myself on here gonna check the
success.
audio.
Yeah, you're gonna check the audio.
Yeah.
I guess the problem is my real name is showing, which doesn't really matter. I'll just fix that stuff up later. So I want to stay with the brand, stay on brand here.
Yeah, it's working.
All right, great. Okay. I wonder if I could change my name in the meeting. I don't think so.
Hmm.
Because when you're using your email, did you put in your name or is it just what you have for your email address?
It's what I have for my like my Gmail email that I use for my YouTube login.
Okay. Yeah, because I have like a couple channels and I just have to fix stuff so it stays on brand. So we're recording, we're live, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just double check everything one more time. Make sure the streaming is going good. Yep, that's going great. That's going amazing. And I got to make sure I stay on the actual meet. It's weird. We're using different technology here. We're using Google Meet. Apparently, Google has retired Hangouts. Hangouts still works, from what I've heard, but you can only do a video call to one person, so you can't do a conference call. Um, but the new platform now is Google Meet. So there we go. So what are we going to talk about today? Let's go ahead and introduce ourselves. I am Dusty Cubes, aka Woke Centrist, and we got Andrew here from Mindgasms. Go ahead and say hello.
Hi everyone. Glad to
And
still be glad that we can still talk to each other on your channel now. We'll get some more content on there.
yeah, we had like 2 or 3 videos, so it's
Yeah.
going to explode exponentially soon.
Yes.
Um, and a lot of the chats we did were actually were not publicly available because we had to put stuff in private. But now we're good. It's all going to be publicly available. I'm going to re-release a lot of it. I'm going to actually try and put a lot of this in listenable podcast form so that you can just download and listen to the audio files and you don't have to be stuck to YouTube to get our content. You can use whatever podcatcher you use. But yeah, I'm going to start working on that and trying to get some type of um, I guess I gotta get one of those accounts where I could put a bunch of audio files and send them to like podcast feeders and catchers and all that other stuff. I'll learn all about that and figure it out. Sure, it's not going to be too much trouble. But what are we talking about today?
An excellent, high quality, super high level ideas book, as Dave Rubin would say.
Did he? Did he actually review this book?
I don't know. He probably did. He probably talked with Candace Owens about it at some point. I bet. I'm not sure
Yeah,
that. I'm not sure.
I'm going to have to see what these people are saying because I rolled my eyes so hard at this book and laughed so hard at this book
Yeah.
and just
Like throughout it's for me too. Throughout the entire book, I was alternating between being pissed off and just laughing at the inadvertent comedy of it.
the thing that sucks is that there are people who have very, very nuanced versions of her arguments. Um, like she quotes, well, she doesn't quote, but she talks about reading Thomas Sowell, and I was like, man, I'd read Thomas Sowell any day over this. This is
Yeah,
just horrible.
yeah, yeah.
um,
We didn't say the actual title of the book.
oh yeah, the title of the book, I guess it's controversial. So it's called Blackout, and I don't. It has some convoluted subtitle. Do you know what
Yeah,
that
I think it's
subtitle
like
is?
I'm gonna look it up right now. It's something about escaping the democratic plantation again.
Yeah, it's something like that. And I think the reason I like the other books, but who talk about these topics, this book is clearly partisan. It's
Yes.
clearly like political tribalism at its extreme.
Yeah. Like she's a fucking caricature of a conservative. Like it's just
Yeah,
there's no substance whatsoever to her arguments, and she's always like, "Look at all this bad stuff the Democrats did. It's like the Democrats were all for slavery and shit, man. Never met." And like there were so many times when she mentioned that in the book when I just said out loud, "Oh, okay, so no Republicans ever were promoting slavery, eh? None of them, eh? Not a single one."
yeah. Like she acts like there were no Republicans that lived in the South,
Yeah,
and she acts like there were no Republicans that didn't have slaves. You know,
yeah.
it's ridiculous. Like in the extreme, and then where she's trying to equate what Democrat with slavery, and usually when I talk about these archaic versions of the two-party system, I typically just like the whole name Republican and Democrat is almost not applicable to the modern day versions of these parties.
Yeah, like
And
especially if you go back to like the wasn't it like the Federalists versus the Republicans? Was that
yeah,
like
so
yeah.
there's so many different versions. And then we're talking about the Lincoln era Republicans versus, the Jacksonian Democrats. It's like it's so different. And the funny thing is that there's a moniker that you could use to apply any of these types of notions without using a political party. You could just say Southern politics.
Yeah, you
Because
could.
whatever party they're going to prop up, it's typically the Southern values that they latch onto,
Mhm.
like whatever it is. If they say they're Democrats, and then we're thinking, are they liberals? Are they conservatives? So if Candace is going on about this like black conservatism, were Democrats in the civil right or in the Civil War area, were they liberals or were they conservatives?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
you can even look at the like the further nuance to the two different political parties in America today too. Like you and I both know, I'm sure that there's this split in the left between like neoliberals and progressives who hate the neoliberals, and then like with the right wingers there are the the pro-Trumpers and like versus the neoconservatives, or like you could even say maybe neoconservatives and paleoconservatives and just like neoconservatives. Oh, I said that twice, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like the centrists versus the extreme ends. Like, both party has its centrist faction, and then both parties have kind of their extreme edge faction. And it
Yeah.
seems like the fuel has been given to these extreme edges where they're taking over. I wouldn't say they're taking over, but a lot of the political conflicts that you see between the two parties are based off of criticizing the extreme ends of the parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another example I just thought of with that too is how I've heard at least recently that Fox News turned on Trump and are criticizing him, even they are criticizing his election fraud claims, and then apparently that has caused a lot of Republican Fox News watchers to not like that, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I know that their viewership dropped like maybe 13%, but Fox still has a majority of Republicans preferring Fox over any other conservative news stations.
Yeah.
They're losing that share, which is, it is what it is. People are saying at this point, the public is reaping what Fox sowed, which is this alternate reality of, this conservative reality. Because whenever I don't know, it's like you turn on Fox and it is a lot of like left-based criticism. You turn on, CNN and all those other places, there's a lot of right-based criticism. And they're kind of reaping what they're sowing. Like, they're not talking about, you rarely see them talk about, bipartisan action and issues and things that everybody agrees upon. They're just really looking for those ratings,
And the other, you mentioned another aspect about how this bipartisanship can be so confusing and almost like misdirection in a way too, because like the neoliberals and neoconservatives try to get things done that they agree on, and they're like neoliberals and neoconservatives in different parties, like Republican Party and Democratic Party, and then they're like doing things that go against the people who are more like progressives for sure on the left, and then more like anti-war right wingers or people like that on the right.
Mm. But yeah, the book is a mess.
It is.
I know it starts off. There are some sections that I would say that are kind of biographical, right? So she talks about, like, if we want to go dive into that section, she just talks about her upbringing, and we're not given a whole bunch of details. She says that she grew up, quote unquote, poor, and then she moved out and lived with her grandparents who lived in a middle class neighborhood.
Her grandpa sounds awful.
Yeah. So anyway, like, we don't really have a frame of reference as to what age this occurred, because she never gives us this information. So I don't know if it happened when she was in kindergarten or if it happened to her when she was in high school. Like, there's no information here. So I would say it would be a big difference to have your life turned around into a middle class when you're a kindergartner versus, a sophomore in high school. There's
Yeah,
a
that's a
big
good point.
chunk of formative years that could happen there.
Yeah,
Um, so she doesn't really give us those details. Most of most of what she says that she's quote unquote got her conservatism from her grandfather. I am totally skeptical of this because there's a whole chapter of her life that she did not discuss in this, and
yeah.
that's the website that she made.
Well,
And
she talks about like that those associated things that happened to her when she was in high school, but not that part of it. Like she conveniently leaves out that part, right?
yeah, and that's a huge part because
Yeah,
that whole part is based off of what happened to her. And she tries to play it off like it was a no big deal in the book. She tries to play it off as it's not a big deal. And
yeah.
she tries to play it off as the NA double whatever, NC,
NAACP.
NAACP. She tries to play it off as they're the ones who orchestrated everything
Yeah.
and it was out of her hands. And I'm calling complete bullshit on this because she made a website dedicated to that very thing that happened to her.
Yeah,
And
she
if,
went. She that was that that Dave Rubin episode filled with animosity between her and Blair Whitewood. That was the whole giant debate about that, where she was defending the website. I think, right, something like that.
well, that and she's trying to sweep that under the rug as if it had nothing to do with anything. And this is why I find it maddening because people who don't know that aspect don't know that if you knew that about her, that makes you think, is she playing an act here or is she genuine?
She's all
Um,
about the grift. She's
yeah.
queen grift.
And I remember in the videos that she made for her Kickstart, because this was a Kickstarter, and she had like videos promoting this website. And if I remember clearly, she was using like pretty left wing and liberal language when talking about this website. And I wish I could, if I really did some really good digging, I bet somewhere I can find these trailers for her social autopsy website. Here's what I do want people to do if they are listening to this is to do some research on the social autopsy website because that's what it was called. That's what her project was called. And you'll notice that now that she's in these conservative circles, she never talks about it. It's kind of like how Blippy doesn't talk about, the Harlem Shake video that he did where he's pooping on his friend. Do you know who Blippy is?
No.
Okay, he makes like kids content, like children's content.
That's awesome.
And before he became a child star, he he was like a upcoming comedian, and he created a character called Steezy Grossman, and he did like a parody video of the Harlem Shake, where he literally films himself pooping on his friend. It's pretty gross. It's like jackass level stuff.
Wow, that's that's hilarious.
But yeah, I had a very big problem with her obscuring these details of her past and
Yeah.
trying to downplay the racial discrimination case that she had against. Was it against the school or the person? I don't remember who
I
or
think it was
what.
against the person who like what did he do exactly? He left her like a racist phone message or he talked to her in a racist way on the phone?
He and a few friends left her racist voicemails.
Okay.
And she sued for damages, and I believe she got money for that, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, I don't know, there's some grift going on here, man.
Yeah.
I was not pleased by that.
Yeah, and
And
like you said, she totally didn't get her fucking conservatism from her grandpa. She got it from like all those conservative intellectuals who she talks to all the time now. Like
yeah,
like Larry Elder and I don't know, like every other conservative that Dave Rubin talks to probably.
yeah, it sounds like she's been reading, so I'm not gonna um, chide her for that because I was listening to the audiobook and I did have a copy that I borrowed from my library of the digital book, and I was like, she better have a fucking bibliography because it sounds like she's spouting a bunch of bullshit here. She did have a bibliography. I
That's
didn't go
good.
through all of it, but I did notice that, in her bibliography, there were links to like the Daily Wire and other questionable like news websites. So,
If she were
like, if
writing
she had,
if she were writing an academic paper in university, they would say you cannot select links from websites like the Daily Wire as evidence in your paper.
well, not only that, is she's also had in her bibliography, she also had a Huffington Post like site. So it was like, yeah, this is like the epitome of bullshit here. Like, who's
Yeah,
going to use Huffington Post or the Daily Wire as like evidence of anything?
yeah.
But I
And
digress.
like you were saying too, like there are conservatives who are so much more sophisticated in their arguments than her. Like you mentioned, Thomas Sowell, and I'm less of a fan of Larry Elder in particular, but he does make better arguments than she does. Like I like some of what he says in the introduction about how affirmative action might be a really bad idea, and about so-called school choice. Those are two conservative arguments that I actually agree with for the most
Mhm.
part. And like obviously Thomas Sowell, he's a brilliant intellectual, and then like a few well, Glenn Lowry is one of my other favorite conservative intellectuals. But then you go to like Candace Owens, and it's like every stereotype that some uber lefty says about conservatives is what she fucking spouts.
Yeah, like her blackness is like not even relevant because it seems like it's basically conservative Republican Trumpian rhetoric.
Yep.
It's not anything. I didn't learn anything new from this book, and I didn't learn anything that I would use in any topic of debate.
Yeah, and her,
Uh,
her her being so sycophantic about Trump is that was so hilarious.
yeah, like her best argument to vote for Trump is simply because Trump said, "What do you have to lose?"
Yep.
Like, you have no better argument like than that. That seems super fucking ridiculous. It's like, what do you have left to lose? Just vote for Trump. It's like, okay, well, why should they vote for Trump besides that? Like, that's like
That's
the
exactly like Biden's campaign message. Hey, I'm not Trump. How could it get any worse?
yeah, because there's no talk of coronavirus at all in this book.
Yeah,
It was definitely published during the pandemic. I don't know how. I know it was published this year for sure, um, but maybe it was probably after where things got pretty bad. So I don't know when she finalized the manuscript or anything. But like the hindsight from this book is so funny. Like because Trump lost, it just makes this book even funnier. But
yeah,
um, I don't know her arguments. Like I do understand like the affirmative action. I'm all good with that, and I think there's better arguments to be made. One of the big problems I had though, and this is something that Thomas Sowell has also harped on a bit as well, and this is where I disagree with them. And I don't know Coleman Hughes' view or Lowry's view on this, but um, here's the problem. They talk about a lot about the LBJ um, Civil Rights Act and how the family has declined since then, and they
Yeah.
attribute it to the government. And here's where I have a
Yeah,
big
that's
problem with
really
that.
oversimplified. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a big problem with that. Is one, why is it only black people? Everybody has access to welfare if they need it. Why is it that only black people are having a problem with welfare if you are saying that? And why are you saying that this has caused the black man to not be in the family more? Like, why is this statistic not um, nationwide by all races? Like, that's the biggest question I have about that particulate. So their their solution is to take away welfare.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the problem
I
is,
think that, yeah, I think you're right that that's basically what Thomas Sowell proposes, but I'm pretty fucking sure that Glenn Lowry and definitely Coleman Hughes don't support that much of an oversimplified solution.
yeah. So that solution doesn't irk right with me, mainly because you're not seeing this across the board with all races of low income. So this is why I don't particularly buy into the whole welfare state has caused the black family to disintegrate. Because if this
It's a
was the
lot more
case, it should
complicated.
cause all families to disintegrate
Yeah.
when they actually use welfare. So I don't think it has to do with welfare in itself. There's something else there. And I know there's a couple other things that I usually like to press upon, and that is more about our incarceration rates,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
which
was.
makes it infinitely harder to get a job once you've gone through any jailing with a felony. So,
Yep. I was thinking about the drug war. Yeah, I was just thinking about that.
yeah, and oh man, I don't even want to get into that stupid crap, but she wrote about, but we probably will touch about on that later because she. Uh, another big problem I have. So I'll get to this other one. So we got that she goes on and on about welfare. LBJ. She's like, oh, LBJ used to say racist shit, and that I totally believe her. Probably did. And she's like, oh yeah, this is the Democrats. This is how they act. She totally ignores Nixon, who came after LBJ, who was a Republican,
Yeah.
who also on tape said a bunch of racist shit.
Yeah.
Like, she's acting like her side doesn't do it.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna go today and ask a bunch of like certified white supremacists who they're gonna vote for, the majority of them are gonna vote for Trump. This is why I think these equivalency arguments are so freaking
Yeah.
retarded.
Well, and she said, doesn't she say, if she doesn't say in this book, she's definitely said it somewhere before, the thing about how Trump is so great for black people that that he says, like how he's the best for black people since Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Um, and then they talk about the crime bill,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, are you telling me that no Republicans voted for the crime bill?
Yeah.
Is that what you're telling me, Candace? You're telling
Yeah.
me that it was only Democrats who voted for that? You'd be full of shit, Candace.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about law and order and making things harder for black people, why are you not talking about Nixon, who was a Republican?
Yeah.
It's so fucking stupid. And she's saying, "Oh, these Democrats don't know their history." She doesn't know her fucking history.
No,
Like
she
there were
doesn't.
so many times where she's saying shit. It's like you don't know your fucking history, Candace.
No.
Uh, yeah, one of the biggest ones too is she's going crazy. Is like, oh, rap is causing the disintegration of the black family, and black music used to be wholesome, and yada yada yada. It's like, fucking Candace, have you never heard of rock and roll? Have you
Yeah,
never heard of the blues? Like, what? Did you
like
not know that jazz music was considered by the white population to be lecherous and
yeah.
distasteful? It's like, Candace, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about,
And the same
Candace.
thing with and the same thing with dancing too. And then
Yes.
people started admiring dancing and black people's music, and they started copying it.
Yeah, it's almost great that I read the Renegade History before this
Yeah,
because it refutes so much of the bullshit that she says
yeah, I
regarding
know, right?
like the culture of black people.
Yep.
And then there's like the super cringy part where she's like quoting scripture and I was like, fuck, man. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, man.
Like you can quote scripture to support literally any point. You
Yeah.
like you can quote scripture to support slavery, or you can quote scripture to argue against slavery.
Yeah. She's only, so, like, I think the whole, like, Bible thing is just I am a Republican, so I have to talk about the Bible.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's genuine to me.
I wonder how often she goes to church.
I don't know. But apparently her husband is not even American from what I was reading.
Oh,
He's
okay.
from England.
Oh yeah, he's some English white guy, right? Some rich English
Yeah.
white guy. Yeah.
Oh man, this fucking book. There's so much wrong, and there's so much hypocrisy. 'Cause the funniest thing is she's all, oh, the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party, and she contradicts herself so much in this book that it's not even funny. Like I think there was something that she was saying about AOC. Um, it's like she was talking shit about AOC or something. Um, I can't remember. I wish I had read it. That way I'd have like more notes prepared. But I can't believe how ridiculous this book is. I don't think I've read anything worse than this so far. Like, and I've read books written by Republicans,
Yeah.
and I've even read Tucker Carlson,
Yeah.
and I was like, fuck, this is like the worst political book that I've ever read. It's That's why I wish Chris was here tonight because he gave it 3 stars, and I wanted to
Yeah.
hear his justification for that.
Yeah. I gave it 1 star.
I did too. This is the worst book I've read, and it just shows how bad it is because one, it's just a book full of talking points for the
Yep.
most part.
It is.
She provides the same statistics that I've heard every other Republican citing when they talk about, police brutality. And the problem I have here is she explicitly says that police brutality is a myth. It's not a
Yeah.
fucking myth.
Yeah.
People get killed and beaten by the cops.
Yeah.
There's no myth here. We've seen it.
Yeah.
And then she goes on to talk about, oh, George Floyd by the media is portrayed as being a hero. And it's like, well, I don't
He was a
remember any of
sexual
that.
assaulter and a thief.
Oh, yeah. He did drugs. He's such an evil man.
Yeah.
Like,
That means
you know what? Well, why aren't you going
for
on?
9 minutes?
Yeah, it's like if you're so adamant and hate people who are on drugs, then why aren't you calling Trump out for his stimulant use?
Yeah.
It's so fucking dumb. It's like
and
super
his
high
like
horse.
cheating on his wife, and
Yeah, exactly.
like that's not
Talking about the
considered.
porn star. Like what? You're
Yeah,
talking about morals and shit in this book, and then you're totally ignoring all the Trump shit. Like,
I bet
she
he totally
ignores
loves
all of the
Matthews
Trump
too.
shit. All of it.
Yes.
I don't get it. I don't get it. But apparently people ate this shit up because I was looking at Goodreads and it had like an average of 4+ stars. I was like,
Wow.
really? I was like, Jesus Christ. I couldn't
She's all
believe it.
about the grift, man. A lot of
Yeah,
people are
and
fooled by the grift.
I don't know. I think this is just a type of book that are just made for people that are novices that don't really have any deep reading of politics or history.
Yeah.
'Cause if anybody does, I don't know. I'd have to get like someone who's super conservative to read this and see what they thought. But
Like my
they'd
friend Shane
probably agree
Kennedy.
with it. Like who?
Like my friend Shane Kennedy. I
Yeah, but
think
he's borderline like QAnon man now.
yeah,
So
yeah, he is in some ways. He's
like,
like he's not homophobic, but he thinks that like like gay people live like inferior lives in some way. Like not from a place of that he hates them, but he literally thinks that they are like they have worse lives in general, I think.
well, that means he feels that he's superior than gay people,
Yeah,
which
I
I
think
don't think
so.
is very
And
humbling
and
for a Christian.
I saw him saying too, I got into an argument with him once because he said something. I forget what I said, but I said something about abortion, and he basically borderline compared abortion to mass genocide. Like,
Okay. Well, I know there's speak of abortion in Candace's book.
yeah, yeah,
And she goes into the Margaret Sanger and the whole movement. What was that called? Eugenics, right?
oh yeah,
And she
yeah,
acts like eugenics is a fucking Democrat thing when
yeah. It's so hilarious.
it was an everybody thing back
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
Um, this is so stupid. Her thing is to try to connect in some magical way that Democrats do everything bad and are evil.
hmm
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, doesn't she literally say that Democrats are evil in this book?
I think she probably does.
Yeah, like I'm not totally unaware that there is pandering on the left,
Oh, of
but
course.
yeah, that's totally, you totally see that. But there's a thing about pandering, and there's a thing about um, like, okay, like for instance, why did Trump win the Rust Belt in 2016? That's because he fucking pandered to them.
Yeah.
He pandered to the Rust Belt and he got their votes.
Yep.
Did he pander to the Rust Belt this election? No, he didn't.
No.
Um, and he lost some key states. So, like Michigan, he lost. Um, and I think he got Wisconsin last time, if I'm not mistaken. I might be
I don't know.
mistaken, but definitely got Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is a Rust Belt state, and he lost it this time around. So that's what politicians do. They try to get people to vote for them,
Yep.
and they pander to people, whether it's
Yep.
genuine or not. And she acts like it's not a legitimate tactic, a fucking tactic that Trump used.
Yep.
Like, well, but whatever. Um, okay, so yeah, her views on abortion. Of course, she's against it. It almost sounds like she's against contraception because I know Margaret Sanger was also pushing contraception. She says that well, abortion clinics are always in minority areas.
Like this is what I don't get about people, like some people being both like anti-abortion and anti-contraception. Like, what? So, are you saying then that uh, that marriage, sex within a marriage to have children is the only time people should ever have sex? Like, I would point you to Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. Every sperm is sacred. That woman with like 80 kids.
Yeah. I will say that there's a lot of straw manning in this book.
Yeah,
She typically she uses the poorest arguments and uses that as the things to attack. So a
yeah,
lot of her argumentation is about attacking the most wacky of left-wing positions that are not a majority positions. Like she's not attacking things like Medicare for all. She's not attacking like really big issues about police reform. Didn't she just basically go into the defund the police deal like right
yeah, I think
away?
so. And abolishing the police,
Yeah,
basically.
which is not at all a majority position. Um, and I think she also talked about the rioting.
Yeah, I
I
think
think,
so.
and she was upset because some like old dude got killed by some rioters,
Yeah,
and from what I understand, is that there are opportunists. I don't think someone who's really concerned with politics is running into a store to go rob it with
yeah,
while being armed with handguns. Your typical protester is just not going to do that. And then it was known. I think there were lots of break-ins, robberies, burglaries, whatnot, in different parts, and a lot of it was attributed to opportunists.
mm-hmm.
My guess is that if we were in some pretty good economic times, I think whenever we have these riots, it's typically a multivariate situation. Like you have a bunch of people out of work because of the coronavirus, and a lot of the work that is affected is usually the lower wage jobs. Those are the ones that are affected the most with coronavirus.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, because people are scared and angry. And I think if the coronavirus not come, I don't think we'd see this much rioting and shit.
oh yeah, I think you're definitely right. Yeah,
Um, I guess just another thing is there's a lot of whataboutism in this book,
mm-hmm.
um, which is not an argument for me
No,
at all. Because one thing she wants people to do is just ignore police brutality or either do a whataboutism about a white person who was killed.
yeah,
And and it's not what about, it's yeah, include them too.
yeah,
The fact is that here's the fact. Black people, it seems, really care about when poor black people get killed by the police. And it seems like conservatives don't really care that much when white people die. It's kind
yeah,
of strange.
yeah,
So she says, like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, people protest. So is she actually okay with the police brutality across all races? Or what is she trying to say here? That nobody should be concerned about the police brutality?
It kind of
Or
seems that way.
so a lot of the whataboutism I see too is about Black Lives Matter. She employs, and this is something that Larry Elder does as well,
Hmm.
employs the whataboutism about black on black crime.
Yep.
But Black Lives Matter isn't about black on black crime. It's specifically about police brutality.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't understand why they always employ this whataboutism. It's like if you create a body about a specific political issue, and you tell that body, well, why aren't you fighting for X, Y, and Z? Because that's not what we're fighting for. We're fighting for specifically this issue. It's like if you have, I don't know, there's a lot of whataboutism in this book, is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it is, but I find that I don't know why conservatives are more prone to whataboutism, so to speak.
I don't know. It's like that point about black on black crime. It's like that. It seems like that's often used as like, oh, takedown. Now that point's irrelevant. Well, like you said, that black people are disproportionately represented by these people, and it's for a wide variety of reasons. Like this, things are complicated. Like there's culture, there's the drug war, there's the welfare programs, like they mentioned before, like they never mention when they're even talking about this. And it's and it's not like it's culture, it's the government, it's class, it's racism, it's the drug war, it's all of those things. It's not like one or the other.
Yeah, there was like some other weird stat that she talked about when talking about welfare, and she was giving some type of example of what like a welfare queen was, and she basically stated that the majority of recipients live in this fashion.
Right.
I was like, she said that they were making $150,000 a year. I was like, this is total fucking bullshit. I've been on welfare before, and I know kids that were on welfare. None of them were driving around new cars. We were all had really shitty televisions. Some of us had black and white TVs. It wasn't it wasn't easy. Like we weren't eating out every day. We were standing in food lines to get food, and we were on welfare.
Right.
Like we had food stamps. So this argument that the majority of welfare recipients are living like queens is just complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this even, like, it just doesn't make sense. And
Well,
I don't
it's
know,
like
to anybody who's
it's
living on welfare, it is not fun, nor is it convenient at all. Because you have
it's
to
using
jump through a
it's
bunch of
using
hoops.
rare examples to poison the well, basically. Like these rare examples represent the majority somehow.
Yeah, and I wish I was looking at the book and checking her bibliography on that, but it just seemed completely ridiculous to me that anyone. And she was like saying, "Oh yeah, this one lady collected a bunch of different welfare checks under different names and blah 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 blah." I was like, "Yeah, but you're just talking to a criminal. Not everybody that receives welfare is a criminal.
Yeah.
Like there's criminality, and then there's people who actually need these things to survive.
Hmm.
So you're going to punish the people who need these things because there's a couple criminals gaming the system. Why aren't you talking about all of the people on the top end of businesses who are screwing people, taking their money? And oh man, here's another thing that pissed me off. She attributed the housing crash to Obama.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, what the fuck is this dumb bitch talking about? Like, does she not know that Bush deregulation is why this happened? I just fucking, I don't
He's the
know,
one in
man.
Obama's the one who bailed them out. They both did it together.
Yeah, Obama didn't do right by bailing him out, but he didn't cause the fucking
No,
situation.
he wasn't even president then.
Yeah, he got sworn in while this shit was happening.
Yeah,
And this subprime mortgage shit had been going on for a couple of years before that.
yep,
I don't know. It's so stupid.
yeah.
I would not, if you want to read or listen to the dumbest book you've ever read or listened to in your life, this is the book for you. I am a glutton for pain and for horrible shit, so I would recommend it to people just to see what bad arguments look like. But I wish you, like, one of my main things is I wish you would have been more biographical about this book. It was mostly her talking about politics. I know she talked about one of her friends who sounded like she had an actual cool and fun life, and she was like talking down her lifestyle because she wasn't carefree. Well, it's funny because you can tell that she was a little bit envious of her friend's lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I do believe there are trade-offs. Like, you can live a lifestyle such as that, but you know it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
Or you can live this super rigid and grindy lifestyle without a whole bunch of fun, and you get what you get. You know, so I wouldn't deride anybody for wanting to be an actor or an actress and trying to live out their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
totally.
it seems like she's very rigid, especially when it comes to black culture.
He
She's
sounds
like,
like a total Puritan, 100%.
oh no, she's a
Yeah.
goddamn Puritan. There's
Yeah.
like no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
It's like the height of black culture to her was the Temptations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like,
So,
better not make a video called Wet Ass Pussy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Because she did comment on that. Um, she commented on Megan the Stallion.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I was looking. If you're looking for a nuanced or even a new view of conservatism, you're not going to find it here. You're not going to find
Yeah.
a well-argued view of it. You're just not going to find it in this book.
Yeah.
The real sad thing is just a lot of people think she's super smart. When I look at someone like Coleman Hughes, he looks at the same issues that Candace does and agrees on a lot of them. But he takes you through his thinking, and he also uses Thomas Sowell, but he's more modern, so he actually listens to rap and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
He
he
is
has
a
no
rapper.
problem with it. Coleman Hughes raps?
Yeah, he raps.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I knew he liked hip hop, but I didn't know he did any like music or anything.
I was surprised when I learned that because I was like, man, he seems like too much of an intellectual to be good at rapping. I wonder what his rap is like.
Yeah, exactly. So, and even the old heads like Glenn Lowry, and I think, I would say John McWhorter is not exactly conservative, but he also agrees with a lot of these types of points as well.
Yeah.
So I just think she's kind of a poor representative of that sector of thought.
Yeah.
There are better representatives who have more fleshed out views, that aren't partisan. And that's the biggest problem I have with this book, is that she's just wholly partisan. The whole
Mhm.
book is about not voting for Democrats. It has nothing to do with policy, really. She doesn't really get into any policy outside of the big ones like abortion and what are some other policy things? Welfare, abortion,
Mm.
immigration, as she covers this
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
in a quite poor way. I don't like her view on immigration seems to be very superficial. Most of everything, she seems to have a superficial understanding of everything. But
Yeah.
when she starts talking, she only spoke very little about immigration, but um, I think she said that it takes away black jobs or something like that. I don't
Which
know
is really
how.
true.
She didn't really get into it, but that's just what she said.
That's just like this is another it's just a common right wing talking point that isn't, as far as I know anyway, isn't really actually supported by evidence. Like immigrants don't really take jobs that people actually want for the most part. And another one that I heard that that I learned about actually relatively recently was that they actually apparently statistically commit less crime than actual American citizens, which makes sense if you think about it, because they're like, well, I'm in this country, I want to do well, so I should probably obey the rules and work hard and try to be a good citizen, basically. So because I'm lucky to be here, that sort of mindset.
Well, that and they avoid criminality because they don't want to get deported.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
And she doesn't talk about like the other spectrum of immigration, which is like this is one that Eric Weinstein has talked about, and I've kind of heard about it and anecdotally experienced it, that they're degrading the quality of higher end jobs. But she only focuses on the poor people, of course.
Right.
I think the higher end jobs are actually should have more focus. Like a lot of engineering jobs, we're seeing a lot of immigration for those because they don't want to pay engineers as much as they should deserve.
Right.
Like, I remember I was in an Uber once, and a guy who was a software engineer, he told me he was only getting paid like $28,000. I was like, "Are you serious? You're a software engineer. You only get paid $28,000." He's like, "Yeah. I came from my country, and they offered me this, and it's just much better than I would make in my own country." So he was super happy. And I'm here thinking like you should be getting paid more than double that. Like
Yeah.
that's how much I would expect to be paid at least 60 grand for software engineer work because I've done it before.
Right.
And I was just like shaking my head. 28,000, like that's just barely above. That's like I make more than that, and I'm not doing anything remotely close to software engineering right now.
Right.
So I'm just shaking my head. That's the guy's a software engineer, and he has to do Uber on the side. It's like, wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This book is not good.
No, it's not.
Um, were there anything specific that you saw that she said in the book that you're just like, what the fuck, man? This is so stupid.
Um, I don't know. I guess we probably kind of talked about most of those points. I mean, the whole book or at least 90 or 95% of the book maybe was just an endless stream of like me getting pissed off by her presenting really oversimplified caricatures of arguments and laughing at her doing that, basically.
Yeah, it's almost like she's a first year student that hasn't gotten through the actual curriculum, and she's preaching to professors that already know their shit.
Yeah.
And if she were trying to defend a dissertation, she'd fail. It's
Yeah.
just not good.
Yeah, definitely.
As I was thinking this whole time, I was like, I wish I had the time to like write a blog or some series of articles to go through all of her bullshit points and just tear them up and tear them down, because there's just so many of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's statistics. I don't just I don't yeah, the statistics are fine that she presents. It's what she uses them for that is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, you can talk about black on black crime, and hey, you can seriously try to address the issue as well. And thinking she like here's another thing, she offers almost zero policy prescriptions for anything.
Mm-hmm.
She just says this policy is bad.
It's just like people on like CNN and MSNBC. Hey, guess what Trump tweeted today? Isn't he awful?
Yeah, like there's no solutions.
Yeah.
The solution isn't all black people should become religious and go to church. That to me is not a solution.
Yeah.
Just, I guess what she wants to do is what? Oh, yeah, like this, like one of the immigration straw men that she has is that, oh, Democrats are for open borders.
Yeah, none of them are.
Yeah, I've never heard any mainstream Democratic politician advocate for open borders. Ever.
No.
Not even left-wing Bernie Sanders has said this.
Yeah. Yeah, she hasn't it's like she hasn't actually read any of the policies of these people or even seen what they said about their policies. Like she's just relied on conservative caricatures of Democrats like, oh, they all want open borders and they all want the Green New Deal and Medicare for all, even though most of them actually don't want those things.
Yeah, like some people want parts of the Green New Deal, but some, they don't want all of it. Like nobody wants guaranteed jobs. Like,
Or to immediately phase out flying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I think we covered so much about why this book is so bad. I'm trying to find things that are actually good. I guess.
Like I mentioned a few of the points that Larry Elder said in the introduction. Like, I think we've talked a little bit about a few of these issues before, but he mentioned affirmative action and so-called school choice, which, I mean, from people who have made more intelligent arguments about that, like particularly Glenn Lowry and John McWhorter, who we mentioned, I kind of agree with their more nuanced rejection of affirmative action. Like it seems like it has been not very effective in the way it's been implemented, to say the least. And then in terms of school choice, I mean, at least like I've heard from economists like people like Thomas Sowell to people like more centrist people like the guys in Freakonomics that charter schools and those sorts of things do often tend to have better outcomes. But I remember when we talked about this before, you pointed out that it depends on the school, which does make sense. And I mean, if you can say, I can understand why someone would make the point that you should just improve public schools, but I also agree that people should be allowed to go to private schools if they want to. I mean, I understand why people have problems with that, but it seems, and I understand that people exaggerate about the outcomes of going to different schools like they do with everything else too. But I mean,
Mhm.
particularly more so the affirmative action piece that makes more sense to me, and I kind of agree with those points in general.
Yeah, and I think just talking about public schools, because Candace does cover this topic, and she kind of gives a blanket argument that public schools are bad.
Yeah, yeah,
And the blanket argument is because um, the black community is failing in public schools.
yeah,
So she kind of uses this as, this logical error that all public schools are bad because black people fail at public schools. And the problem
yeah,
with this logic is there's a lot of really good public schools.
yeah.
And I don't know if you remember this, but in New York, there were some public schools that were lowering their standards, and these were specialist STEM schools, but they were
Oh,
also public schools. And these are in wealthy neighborhoods in New York.
oh, okay,
So, of course, their public schools are going to be great because they have a big budget.
right.
The problem isn't the public schools, it's how much funding are these schools receiving, and is that adequate? Like, I don't think it's as simple as public schools are bad.
Yeah, of
It's
course. Yeah,
And that's kind of what Candace is trying to boil down the argument. She doesn't factor in that there are very good public schools that a bunch of white and Asian kids go to.
mm-hmm.
Um, so it's that's why I don't buy that argument. And my wife, she's worked at various levels of public schools. Like the one she's working in now is in a very poor area. There's a lot of immigrants. It's a Spanish speaking area. So, and then before that, she worked at a school. It was mostly black, but most of the parents were professionals, meaning there were doctors and lawyers. And in order to get into the specific school, you had to draw from a lottery. So it wasn't based off of you living at that school, it was a lottery based school
Okay.
that got a pretty good amount of funding. So and it was a public school. So it really it depends on on a school by school basis. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just say all public schools are bad. I know Thaddeus Russell likes to say this just
Yeah.
because he had a bad experience in public schools.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not really a fan of public schools in general too, because of things that we've learned about from mixed mental arts, for example, about how, like the structure in the way that children are generally taught in public schools is assumes that all children learn the same way, which isn't really the case. But like
Mhm.
you said, that doesn't mean that all public schools are bad. Like I've never experienced anything other than a public school rather, so I wouldn't know. And then like you can say that some of the private schools or charter schools or whatever might be better, but then you can also, like, a lot of people might use this term school choice for actually meaning, well, we want to send our children to this really, really religious evangelical school to teach them all about the ways of Jesus. So,
Yeah, and I wonder. Yeah, that's definitely another way of putting it.
yeah.
So, and I know she also criticizes Colin Kaepernick,
Oh, yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, because he was doing something with some Indian tribe, and then she makes some pretty spurious connection about Indians once enslaving Indians. Like, what the fuck does that have to do with police brutality and taking a knee? I have no idea. And it's not like he's saying that white people are bad or something. Like, I don't get her argumentation around that at all. The guy is half white, apparently. So, is she saying that he hates himself or something like that? I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of shit arguments in the book.
I think it's maybe just more whataboutism because maybe
Yeah,
he thinks he's presenting the whole like noble native trope, and she points out, well, natives did bad things too. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but not all of them did. Not all native tribes enslaved other native tribes, just like not all black tribes enslaved other black tribes.
Yeah, she gets into that too, right? About how black slave owners sold black slaves and black people had slaves. Yeah, everyone had slaves. Everyone had slaves. Everyone sold slaves. Every person of every different race had their same race and different races at one point or another in history. Slavery was a major part of the world for most of history.
Yeah. And it's not just slavery with Native Americans. Like, their land was taken from them. Like, literally. Like, stolen from them.
Yep.
And they were murdered, and they died, like, 95% of them died because of disease. You know, it's pretty horrific shit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, just a bunch of fucking stupid whataboutisms. You know, you're gonna find plenty of those in this book.
Yeah.
You won't find stuff like this in a Thomas Sowell or, you know, you won't find Glenn Lowry or Coleman Hughes using whataboutism arguments to push their ideas forward.
Yep. Well, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the people we mentioned, Coleman Hughes, Glenn Lowry, and John McWhorter. I'm pretty sure all three of them, definitely Coleman Hughes. I think I might have heard the other two at one point or another express their contempt for Candace Owens.
Yeah, I have only heard Coleman Hughes talk about Candace Owens. I have not heard Lowry or John McWhorter, but that would be pretty entertaining and insightful to hear from them about this. Because those three, they're not partisans. Like,
no,
they don't present their thoughts in a partisan way. Like, you'll never hear any of them to say vote for Trump or vote for Republicans, because that's not what they're about. They're just about putting the ideas forward and see who will latch onto them. I don't think they care if it's a Republican or a Democrat. They just want to spread those ideas to anybody who will have them.
Yeah, for sure.
And they're not demonizing a political party in their rhetoric. It's just they take issue by issue and they talk about their remedies and what they think is a problem, issue by issue. But it's a partisan book. That's what you're getting here. It's not a thoughtful book.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you want to laugh at stupid arguments, this is the book for you. I definitely did that on occasion. Like, my wife heard me laughing, and I had to explain why. I just told her, I was like, have you ever heard of Candace Owens? And she's like, no. And then I told her about the Vogue magazine thing, about the Harry Styles, and she just shook her head and thought it was so dumb.
Which was that part?
Well, it's not in the book. It's something that Candace Owens did on Twitter recently. She decried Vogue magazine for putting Harry Styles on the cover wearing a dress. And she said that, you know, the East knows this and the West is turning into communist by having these feminized men. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is like the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I don't even know who Harry Styles is.
It's like some pop star from the UK.
Oh, okay.
It's like stuff we don't fucking pay attention to at our age, But
Okay.
I think she used to be involved with Vogue in some capacity. So I don't know, man. I don't know. Like I know Kyle Kalinske did a video based off of that reaction. And I don't know if you've seen it, but you could
Oh,
check it. It's from like a week or two ago.
oh, okay.
But I gave her that example of how her foolish thinking, and then I told my wife, I was like, okay, she's so concerned about manliness and men. Men don't read Vogue magazine.
No,
At least straight men don't. So who is this gonna affect? Like gay dudes and
yeah,
women?
yeah.
That are into fashion? Like spare me the nonsense here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some other nonsense shit she said that I just don't remember now. But yeah, there's just a whole lot of nonsense in this book.
Hmm.
I wish I had, and this is all from the top of my head. If I had taken some super detailed notes, I'd have like 10 pages of bullshit to bring out. It's that much. If
Yeah,
I
it
had
is.
bullet points, it's just bullet point after bullet point I'd have about nonsense that she's brought up.
Mm.
Um, and since people think she's smart, of course, oh, she toots her own horn so much in this book.
Oh, she really does. She does that so much in general, which is so annoying. She's so
Yeah,
fucking arrogant.
yeah, like she had, oh, the hubris of this book,
Yeah.
um, is outstanding. I can't, like, I don't know. That's kind of like there's so many cardinal sins in this book that it's like, yeah, Christianity, blah 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 blah. Let me toot my own fucking horn here. It's like there's so many contradictory things. And I'll say, like, you're never supposed to. She's like, and she boosts her own ego in this book. It's always super awkward when I see people do this. Whether it's Kanye West
Yeah.
or anybody else. I don't know, man. Like, I'd never go out and say, like, rattle off my accomplishments. Like, if someone asked about it, I'll let them know. But usually when I do it like in a super humble manner. Like, says, yeah, this was a cool thing that happened. That's it. But man, I don't know, man. But yeah, she criticizes, of course, Democrats for most of it, and
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just there's very simple questions that destroy a lot of her arguments,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't be very easy for her to answer those without a deep knowledge of a subject. Like these are questions I can't even answer myself, and I've read so much about um, black issues, usually from a more centered perspective rather than these really wacky radical perspectives. And I don't when you read this deeply into things, and I can't even have these questions answered. There's no way she's going to.
Hmm.
Like like the simple question about welfare that I had. Well, why is it specifically bad for black people where welfare is available to everybody in the United States who's under a specific income bracket? Like, that's not something she's going to be able to answer. I know Thomas Sowell will probably have an answer for that.
Well, that's. I mean, like, maybe black people are disproportionately poor, but then if you ask them why, they'll say like, "'Cause Democrats, bro."
That's the reason, because of Democrats.
Probably.
Well, yeah, it's
Oh, and bad black culture.
oh
Never worked hard
yes,
enough, man.
yes, as if well, I don't know. Like I could say that there may be some contributing factor there, but who decides whether black culture is bad? If she is saying that white people decide that black culture is bad, then she's totally being an assimilationist,
Yeah.
and she's totally adopted the white values there. Because remember, her epitome of black music is the Temptations. You
Yeah.
know, nothing has gotten better since then. Even though it's weird, oh yeah, I love Kanye's music. It's like, have you not listened to all his shit where he talks shit about George Bush, and it's I don't
Yeah.
know, it's just dumb. It's just, I think she talked shit about Jay-Z at some point in the book, if I'm not mistaken, and
Oh
Beyonce.
yeah. I forget what she said about him.
Yeah, I think it's because I think maybe Beyonce took or Jay-Z may have taken a crack at her on Twitter. I don't know. Maybe that's what happened. I know Dave Chappelle certainly has taken a crack at her. Did you see
Oh
that
yeah,
special?
in that special where he makes fun of her smelly pussy.
Oh, it was short but so freaking hilarious. He's
Yeah,
like, "Oh yeah, she's like the stupidest smart person I've ever heard of." I was like, "Yeah, yeah,
pretty much.
yeah." Stupid smart people often get their mind abducted by tribalism, and that's just what I kind of seeing here on her part. It's just all of the whole tribalist arguments that she's making. Yeah, I'm just not into it, man.
Yep.
Not into it.
Either.
Like I can read political books, and I do, by all different types of people, like Republicans and Democrats. And most of those books that I read don't say Republicans are all bad and they're all evil, or
Yeah,
Democrats are all bad and they're all evil.
yeah,
I've never heard that except in the book. Maybe I am not as well read into like these crazy crackpot right or left wingers, but man, does this not solve any problems.
yeah. No shit, man.
So,
Well, it's just like some like people like Ta-Nehisi Coates or Robin DiAngelo being all like, "Bro, it's all white people. They're the problem. All black people are noble, and white people are all the problem." It's like as oversimplified as that, but the opposite direction.
yeah, and I'm thinking maybe because I just got White Fragility from my library, and I'm thinking maybe we'll do one on that.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That's a good idea, man.
Gotta
Like you
have
were
like an
saying, it's
offset here.
good to intellectually shit all over a right wing book and a left wing book.
Yeah, so we'll have an offset with that. I guess that'll be my next nonfiction that I read. I'll have to put the Obama book on the back burner there because I got that one too, the new one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll read that. I'll make myself read that book again before we talk about it too, I guess.
Yeah, I'll get you a copy if you need it.
It might still be on YouTube, in which case I could just listen to it there. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it's not too long. It's a little bit longer than this Candace, but I guess that's a plus. Is that this book is not very long.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
It's
both short, which is nice.
yeah, so you don't have to spend a whole lot of time with it, especially if you're listening it to at a faster pace. Because I think total maybe it took me like 3 hours to get through it. That's when I
Yeah.
was looking back. I was like, oh, I'm almost done. I didn't really feel like it was that fast. I guess it was so entertaining that it kind of went by like faster than I thought it was going to be. When I say entertaining, I didn't mean that it's actually good. I'm just saying It definitely, I did have a reaction.
Yeah,
That's the kind of entertainment that I'm talking about here. But
yeah,
I guess we can start to talk about our final scores here.
sure.
Uh, what is your final take?
Yeah, 1 out of 5 stars for sure.
1 out of 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the same here, man. The only thing I would say is there's much better people to read that have a better grasp on the material. They're not partisan, and it feels like they truly care about the issues
hmm and if you're a
themselves.
conservative and you want to have good arguments for people who are going to argue against you, don't read this book.
Yeah, like I just don't feel that Candace is genuine.
Yeah,
Um, I just don't see it here. It's one, her argumentation is poor. It's all over the place. It's not about the issues. It's about partisanism, and that's the biggest problem I have. It's not about what are the issues and the solutions. It's about this team is good and that team is bad. It's like black people need to be conservative and Democrats all suck. To me,
yeah,
that's not a good argument. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Like I know Thomas Sowell gets a little bit into that,
yeah,
where he speaks specifically about liberals,
yeah,
and how they talk down to black people, and yeah, I see that too. Um, but he goes deep into the culture and does the research.
yeah. Like,
Um,
Black Rednecks, White Liberals, which we've talked about, is a great book, and he has some other great books too, like Intellectuals in Race and Intellectuals in Society. A few of those are good. I also read his book on economics, which I liked less, but he's a very detailed thinker, regardless of whether you agree with his opinions or not.
yeah, like he lays everything bare. Um, Even some of the things that you wouldn't necessarily like. There's things I disagree with him on. Like I disagree with Soul on the current culture thing, where we're talking about how he doesn't like hip hop and all that.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever, it's just boomer talk to me more than actually looking at things. Like, oh,
Yeah.
in my day, blah 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 blah. Well, your blah 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 of your day is our day's equivalent of this in our day.
Yeah.
It's not that much different. It had the same perception as like the perception of it was just as bad, you know.
hmm
But it is what it is, man. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1 star. I would say you're better off reading things like Black Liberals, or I'm sorry, White Liberals, Black Rednecks, and many of the things she references. But yeah, you're getting a watered down partisan version, and often poorly thought out version of Sowell and Coleman and things of that nature. And
Yeah.
I'd say Coleman has a pretty big YouTube presence. I wouldn't say as in he's like a monster of YouTube, but he has a lot of content, is what I'm talking about. So there's a ton of his content on YouTube. If you really want to get into some nuanced thinking about race issues, he's a good guy to go to,
hmm
um, and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Do I regret reading it? No. It's an intellectual exercise to actually hear these things and see what my reaction is going to be to those.
hmm
And I'm just saying, there's better out there. There's better stuff out there, more nuanced stuff out there. If you want to shit on something, read the book.
Yeah.
If you're looking for like genuine insight, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you like bad movies like Troll 2 and The Room, and this is like my version, but in book form, in political book form, okay? This is like the political book form of The Room or Troll 2 or any number of movies that are so bad that they become comedic masterpieces.
Yeah.
It is the same here, okay? This
Yeah.
is a comedic masterpiece in political thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
All right, so I think we shit pretty hard on this one.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever shit so hard on a book in my life. Like even Ta-Nehisi's Coats, I would prefer over this because Ta-Nehisi, at least he has some good prose.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Yeah.
Like it's flowery and poetic. I don't like the ideas, but at least he's a writer. Candace Owens is not a writer.
No.
No, the prose is super basic. There are some parts where she tries to be a writer, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it's just not. It's like elementary school level prose, and I'm talking about it's an attempt to be flowery. It's like, really, come on here. Like you're no, yeah, you're no Langston Hughes. Just get your shit out and get done with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we can wrap up that section, and I guess we could talk about what we've been reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what'd you have on your plate?
Yeah. Well, I guess you know a lot of the stuff that I've been reading, but I read Skin Game, Dresden Files number 15, which is fucking awesome.
And you
I love
finished it?
Yeah.
And you like it better than Cold Days?
Yeah, I like it more than Cold Days. I like it. I like all the stuff that happens, like
Post
there's
changes.
there's so much that happens. No, I still like. I would say Changes is still my favorite book in the series so far,
Mhm.
but Changes along with Skin Games and at least 2 or 3 others, I gave all of them 5 stars, and like, oh, there's so many good things, like Murphy almost dying when she comes with Dresden, and
Mhm.
basically Michael having to get pulled out of retirement because Murphy almost dies, and his guardian, because he's so noble, his guardian angel basically prevents Murphy from dying, and then he has to go with Dresden on this like heist that Mab has sent him on with Nicodemus and all these bad guys. So they have to go into hell to steal the Holy Grail from Hades, and there's all this double crossing, and we find out that Dresden has basically he has a Lashiel's metaphysical demon or spiritual demon child growing in him, which I've been having headaches lately. And of course there are like lots of awesome magic battles too. And he finally fucking but he finally actually talks to his daughter for the first time since Changes. And we were both talking about how that part that made both of us cry when he actually meets her, and like for me it was when she says, "Do you want to be my dad?" Like, well, that's so sweet.
Yeah, that part destroyed me, and I had to listen to it a couple times. So.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you here. Well, you keep talking about it, and I'll tell you something else when we get to my books. I'm not gonna spoilerize you, but
Okay.
I'm a little bit past you in the Dresden universe.
Yeah, you're a few books ahead of me. You're
almost caught
one, right?
up. Yeah, but you're almost caught up, man.
Mm-hmm.
You're like a couple books, and you're right where I'm at.
Yeah, I've got 3 left in the series, and you're on the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Here's
Yeah,
what I'm going to suggest to you, though. When you do peace talks, I I recommend you just going straight into the next book
yeah,
because basically peace talks and battleground, from what I understand it, were originally supposed to be one book,
yeah. I
and
told you
it
that, didn't
was
I?
yeah, and they were split into two.
Yeah.
So when I was doing it, it's like right when one page ends, like the next page on the other book starts. It's 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 like a book chopped in half. So
Oh,
when you read the end of um, when you read the end of Peace Talks, you're like, this is like a weird cliffhanger way to end this book, and it makes sense now that it's known that this is supposed to be a much larger book. But I would suggest once you start Peace Talks, go right on through to Battleground
okay.
because it's the same plot. It's a single plot that gets split into two books.
Okay. Yeah, good idea. And like you were saying, and I was already planning on reading Briefcases before I read Peace Talks, which of course is that compilation of short stories, which you said has a lot to do directly with Peace Talks too, right?
Yeah, both of these books. So both Peace Talks and Battleground, there are a lot of events that happen in the short stories that are directly related. Because there are certain things, if you had not read Briefcases, there are certain things that happen to characters, and you're like, what the hell happened to him? And or what's going on with this character now? It's like they all of a sudden changed drastically, and you don't know why. And you wouldn't know why unless you read those short stories. Because in some of these short stories, there are some drastic changes to some of the characters that
Okay.
definitely impact them in the other books. And if
Okay.
you hadn't read the short stories, you would just be wondering what happened to that character. Like, what happened to them? Like, why are they so different now?
Right. Yeah, the short stories are great. The other compilation side jobs that I read before was great too. A lot of the and like you and I talked about before too, how a few of them are even from different characters' perspectives, which never happens in the actual novels. So that's really interesting too.
Yeah, you get some other major characters. Because I know the one I want to get to that you have is Aftermath, and that's from um, Murphy's perspective, right?
Yeah, that
So
happens right after the end of Changes. Yeah.
yeah, I need to get to that. I think after I'm done with Battleground, I guess I'm just gonna have to sit down and read those because I have the book, the ebook, but I do not have. Um, or maybe I just might go and purchase a credit for this. I love the audiobook narrator so much that listening to it is my preferred method of getting through these. But typically, that's what I prefer usually the first time I go through a book, and then I'll go back through it and just read it. That's usually how I operate most of the time. As I get the audiobook version, usually audiobooks require less investment.
Yeah.
So I'll take the low investment route, and if I really love it, I'll do the high investment route and go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm just gonna actually spend a credit on those short stories.
Good idea, man. Yeah, they're great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So what else did you have besides Skinny Game?
Uh, so I also, I guess those are basically my general thoughts of a lot of the main things that I liked in Skin Game.
Mm,
Yeah,
all right. And you
and
didn't read? Did you didn't talk about? Oh yeah, because we didn't discuss. You finished Gentleman Bastards finally, right?
yeah, didn't we talk about that last week?
Did we?
I think we did.
Well, maybe we did. I don't remember. When did you finish Gentlemen Bastards?
It was definitely like a week or two ago. I thought we had
Yeah, we
talked about
probably
it.
yeah, we probably did.
I think we did. I
Yeah.
want to. Do you think you could get me book two of that sometime soon?
Yeah, I can actually get it to you immediately because that one is not on a wait list. Hold on a second.
Okay, gotta take a call there. Yeah. So I'll just start talking about what else I was reading right now for the time being. So I also, as Dusty knows as well, I read, I believe it's called Authority, which is book two of Area X,
Oh, you
which,
finished it?
yeah,
Okay.
by Jeff Vandermeer. I like it. I still
It's
like
different, right?
I like Annihilation more. And for people who don't know, there's that movie based on it starring Natalie Portman, that awesome science fiction movie that came out like a year or two ago. And I like that one more because to me, they went more into investigating the world, Area X.
Mm-hmm.
I did like how it was different, but it was a little less entertaining to me to for this one to be from the perspective of this guy who called himself Control and mostly like doing interviews with people, but still kind of exploring some of Area X too. I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. It kind of adds like that different perspective to it and like how it looks that way, and then him investigating more of what's going on. So I think that's really good too.
Yeah, it kind of rounded out the story more about explaining like the government's role in what
Hmm.
they're doing and that there's kind of like these factions that are going against each other. Um, and there's some other weirdness in the book. Like he had like some weird plant that was growing in his drawer. Like there's always like some weird funky stuff that's going on. I think like one of the characters he goes into like their space and the character's like completely crazy or something like that.
Yeah,
So, and he's also questioning like the process of how they're doing things there because he's kind of like an overseer that's reporting back. He's trying to find out everything that's going on and how they're using resources and what they're really doing there and trying to get to the bottom of things.
hmm,
But yeah, it's a totally different viewpoint of the story. And the third one, I think you'll like the third one. It's it. I'm not going to spoil it, so I'm not really going to talk about it much.
okay. Yeah, I'm
But
sure
the
it will.
first one is really more about a first-person, boots on the ground experience of the weird phenomena, and the second book is more about discovering like the things happening around it. And the weird shit does happen at the end of the second book too. You're like,
Yeah,
what the fuck is going on here?
yeah, definitely.
It's like I guess that shimmer or that place kind of expands and it encroaches into the very facility that they're working into.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah, I didn't know you had finished with the second book already.
yep. Yeah, and yeah, I also obviously I also read Blackout and what other nonfiction? I can't remember the other nonfiction books I read recently, but I also um I'm listening to Bands of Mourning that you sent me, of course, which is Mistborn Era 2, Book 3, the last one in the trilogy, which is
So there's gonna
really
be one more
awesome.
because this one
Oh
had a
yeah.
cliffhanger at the end of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't got there yet. I've still got
No, there's gonna be one more for sure in this era.
oh, okay. I thought I had actually seen that when I looked it up recently that Sanderson is writing a fourth one, right?
Yeah, because the first and the second era is supposed to be considered a standalone book, and then the following three are going to be considered a trilogy story.
Oh, okay. So
So
it'll be like books 4, 5, and 6 that are like that.
yes, yeah. Oh, actually, 5, 6, and 7, right?
Right, right, right.
Five, 6, and
Oh, okay.
7,
See.
and then after that, it's going to be the future sci-fi trilogy within the Mistborn universe.
Okay. That'll be cool.
Yeah, Bands of Mourning. There's some crazy stuff that happens in there.
Yeah.
Like the ending is like, holy shit, are you serious? That's what I remember saying to myself when I was finishing that book.
Cool. Yeah, I love I think we were talking briefly before about how no, it's cool that they bring back some of the characters from Era 1 of Mistborn and like
Hmm.
how they've become gods basically, and Marsh is death, and Kelsier communicates with some of the characters, and there's some others as well, and I like how they're discovering like more powers that they didn't know existed, and the bands
Hmm.
of mourning are these magical artifacts that basically came from the Lord Ruler and allowed him to use allomancy and feruchemy and control all 16 of the metals, and all 16, I forget what the other things were, but it's and was it is it Maracy that has all those weird powers, and she's really interesting too, and all the like of course all the magic that they're using for their gun battles is always so awesome too. So many
Yeah,
awesome magic gun battles basically.
yeah, it's been a while since I listened to that, but yeah, I do remember that the Bands of Mourning were the literal bands that he wore in the first book.
Yep,
That Vin ripped off his hands using
yep.
the help of the mists, which means she was using preservation's power to remove the bands from the Lord Ruler's hands. But these bands weren't recovered. I remember she ripped them off, and then they were. I think they went off the balcony or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, because they didn't recover them.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's like it's funny how each of these second era books has like a different feel to it. Like the
Hmm.
first book is totally a Western book.
Oh yeah,
Um, the second book has like a slightly different feel. There are some Western elements, but it feels more political, and it's like I guess it's kind of like a love story ish. As
hmm
there's an interesting relationship between Wax and his arranged wife. Like he went and done an arranged marriage, and it's like they slowly become like an actual like couple instead of being like these two people that were forced to be married because of their status.
hmm
Like there's some pretty good character development in these books.
definitely.
And then Wax or in Wayne is just a wacky dude. You
Yeah,
know?
he's awesome.
He has a weird sense of humor.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, well, I know Sanderson. Why did he have to name these characters Wax and Wayne? You know, he's being a little uh,
Clever.
facetious there.
Yeah.
It's by turning their names into puns. Like
Yeah.
Waxilium, that's weird on its own, but then you
Yeah.
have Wax and Wayne. But yeah, it's a good series. I know most people don't like it as much as the first, but I get it. But then again, it's not complete either, so it's hard for me to really say because the books aren't finished. There's still
Yeah.
one additional book that's going to tie everything together. So that's why I'm hesitant to say that Era One is better because Era Two just isn't finished yet.
Yeah, I'm like if I had to compare them right now, I would say I would say I liked them roughly equally, like almost equally. There's some things that I like more about Era 1 than Era 2 and vice
Mhm.
versa, but I don't know. If I look at them as a series, I think I might like Era 1 slightly more, but
Mhm.
there's so many cool things that happen with all the stuff with the way the magic works and how the society is different and how we're following different characters, and there's still
Mhm.
all sorts of fascinating shit happening, and it like some parts of it are basically developing and continuing the story from Era 1 as well.
Mhm.
So I mean it's definitely still awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the weird thing is like all of the second era has a different feel to each book. Like I would say that Bands of Mourning definitely has a Indiana Jones vibe to it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And it has a very different vibe from the first book, which is totally a Western vibe. Like
definitely. Yeah.
we feel that Wax is like this former sheriff in the Outlands, and he's kind of bringing this whole Western vibe into polite society, and he doesn't really know how to navigate it that well, which is funny because he is a descendant of Breeze, who was the epitome of being able to navigate in noble society. But yeah, it's all good stuff. I'm just wondering how the next edition is going to be and how they're going to wrap up this second era. And
Yeah.
it's funny too, is because like if you think about going from Mistborn to Era 2, in Mistborn, the characters are super freaking powerful.
Mhm.
In Era 2, they're limited. Like I think at most they're going to have two different powers. So they don't have a Mistborn type of figure who can use every single metal.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's interesting from a perspective because it makes it so that Sanderson has to be a bit more craftier with these characters' powers.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the aspects of Era 2 that's more interesting to me because like the when there are characters who can be so powerful, it's in some ways more interesting to me when characters have more limits. It reminds me of Star Wars Rogue One, which it's probably my favorite Star Wars movie, honestly, because it's about underdogs in a universe where there are Jedi where they don't have Jedi powers, but they still have to do this really important mission. And of course, I love the fact that, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen this movie, but that everyone dies at the end.
Yeah. Out of all the new movies, yes, I think Rogue One is my favorite, and I guess a second would be the last in the new trilogy. That was actually pretty decent.
Oh,
Um,
really? I like the second one in the new trilogy a lot more than the third one.
oh man, I hated the second
I love the second one
one.
because like they were trying to subvert all the tropes. I loved all those aspects.
Well, the
I
second
just
one
wish, I
was
wish they
like,
went farther with that. I wish they had subverted the tropes farther.
dude, well, the second one I didn't like because the whole movie revolved around them being chased by the Imperials, and I don't know, it just seemed a bit meh, I guess. What is wrong with the second one? Just like the whole plot. It's a whole entire movie of them being chased in space by a fleet.
But I
And at
really,
the
I really
very,
like that. I really like that we find out that Luke became all disillusioned and
oh
he
yeah,
did
I like that part. Like that was
some
definitely
evil
cool.
shit, and that I forget the fucking new Darth Vader guy's name all the time, but he like tried to
Kylo.
form yeah, like he tried to form this alliance with Rey, and I wish they had done that because it would have been like It would have been more like a spiritual message, like
They
the end.
did in part of the third one.
Yeah,
Did you
but
see the
I
third
don't.
one?
Yeah, I did recently, but the way they did that, I hated the execution of it. It was so, like, it seemed so
The
random.
execution was always going to be bad
I
because I
know,
don't, as
but
actors, I don't
it
think
seems
they
so
have the
random.
chemistry.
It seems so random that they fell in love. Like she killed him and then healed him, and then they fell in love, and then oh, it turns out Palpatine is the major bad guy. I'm like, oh, that just seems like lazy writing, man. Come up with a new villain or some other way to approach this shit, man.
Well, they had to explain how she has Jedi powers. It's not like random people get them all that often.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
true.
it's hereditary. But I know I don't know this. I'm not saying part two. Part two is actually I like part one better than part two, and I also like part three better than part two. I don't know. I just like them better. It's just I loved that Luke was in the movie. Those are my favorite parts. Where that Luke Skywalker was in the movie
Hmm.
from part two. But
I like that thing like near the end about how he tricked all of them, and then he ends up, just becoming Spirit Luke.
you mean where he killed himself
Yeah,
by appearing? Yeah, that was okay. Um, I don't know. I guess the main problem of part two is that its focus was on like two characters I don't really care about that much. What's his name? Like the black stormtrooper and then that Asian lady.
oh yeah, yeah, that's true. That's fair. I'm not really a fan of them as characters either.
Yeah, and they were like the main focus of part two, it seemed like.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, they're the ones like doing all the adventuring. And what's her name? She was just chilling at Skywalker Island. I was like, yeah, all the action stuff had to fall on Finn and that Asian chick, and I was like, they're not that great. So
I
that's
guess
why I
I
didn't
just
really
like the
care
few
for.
parts where there were those like epic lightsaber battles and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, and then what really pissed me off too was like Phasma like died with no fanfare. I was like,
Oh yeah,
really? That's how they're gonna take her out? Like they kind of built her up and she gets killed like all stupidly.
yeah, that's true.
But anyway, yeah, that's my
Yeah,
opinion about the new Star Wars. But I like Rogue One better than all three of those.
yeah, me too. Yeah. Um.
Uh, why did we
Oh
start
yeah,
talking
I
about Star
also
Wars?
what?
Why did we start talking about Star
Uh,
Wars?
I because I used Rogue One as an example of how I like movies about underdogs in universes where some of the characters have enormous magical powers, which is like a comparison between Era 1 and 2 of Mistborn.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah, the characters in Era 2 are much more underpowered than the characters from Era 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I also read this. It's a shorter book by Jared Diamond, who wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, of course, and also he also wrote this great one called Collapse, which is like the opposite of Guns, Germs, and Steel. Like it's how societies collapse rather than how societies form. But
Mm-hmm.
the one that I read by him was called Why Is Sex Fun? So it looks at the evolution of mating practices and why these evolutionary impulses made sex fun for us so we can reproduce, and it looks at like comparisons between humans and other animals in terms of the way they have relationships, like monogamy, polygamy, and how there are these different species where as soon as the male impregnates the female eats him and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting and worth reading for sure, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like an interesting book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need
And
to read more Jared Diamond, because the only one
yeah,
I've read is Guns, Germs, and Steel.
I like Collapse even more. That's actually my favorite book by him so far.
Hmm. Yeah, I gotta see if my library has that.
So the only other thing that I've been reading, the only other book that I've been reading is I've been continuing to reread A Feast for Crows, book 4 of A Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones. And I think I was mentioning this last week because I was reading it last week too. I really love this one and how there are perspectives of characters that we haven't seen before, and there's actually some character development with some characters like Jamie, and there's of course all this scheming, and there's some really awesome violent battle sequences and like single combat sequences and stuff like that. It's a really great book. It might be my favorite one other than the first one in the series in my reread of them this time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've not done a reread yet of Song of Ice and Fire. I will eventually. Um, Thinking, shoot, I'm not gonna do. I was gonna do a Stormlight reread, but I think I'm just gonna go on to the next book and then do a reread later.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it would take a long time.
yeah, because they're massive ass books. So, but Brandon is always quick. Like he writes in a way that it's really quick and easy to read his stuff. Um, I don't know. That's just how his prose works.
Yeah.
Super simple. Um, I guess I'll talk. I didn't read much. Of course, I'm working on Crown of Swords. I think
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like
of
at
course.
chapter 18. I think. I need to read up to chapter 30 for our next talk on that. As
How
far
far
as
are
I've
you
read,
into that?
what's that?
How far are you into that now?
Around chapter 18.
Okay. Let me know when you
So,
think you're like a week or so away from finishing the first 30 chapters, and I'll read those, and then we can do that chat with Tristram.
yeah, for sure. Of course, Blackout. Yeah, we kind of shit on that for over an hour. And then Battleground. I'm not finished with this. I'm a little bit more than halfway through. And right now, I am debating whether it's better than Changes or not. That's how good I think it is. So,
Wow, that's awesome.
I don't really want to talk about it. Um, a big, huge emotional roller coaster like Changes, possibly even bigger. I don't think, and I'm not even all the way through this book. I would say I'm probably 2/3. And I don't think any other Dresden book has actually made me tear up as much as this one.
Wow.
So I actually don't think any book has ever made me tear up as much as this one, to be
Holy crap.
honest.
Wow, it's hard to top Changes.
So yeah, I can't really talk about it. And the crazy thing is I'm not even done with it yet. So I got a few more hours left in the book. But fuck, I was like, oh no, I don't want to talk about it much because there's just so much crazy emotional shit that happens in Battleground. You can imagine, like, the title's called Battleground, so there's going to be a lot of fucking fighting in it. And
Sweet,
there is. Most of the book is combat.
sweet.
So there's a whole lot of. I don't think there's any other book that has as many combat scenes in it. Because the majority of the book is combat. And
Nice.
you're going to like it. But I'm just saying right now, I am debating which is a better book at the moment. And I haven't even finished this book yet.
Wow.
So that's something to look forward to, which is why I was saying that you should probably read those back to back, Peace Talks and Battleground, because Battleground is just a very heavy book. Like, truly, it is heavy.
Sweet.
So, yeah, those are my 2 cents. I didn't read a whole lot this week, just those 3 books. But, yeah, man. I guess the next time we talk, were you thinking of maybe wanting to do a movie chat for our next chat, or move on to D'Angelo's book?
I don't know. Up to you, man. I'm cool either way.
Okay, so I'm wondering if, okay, I wanted you to see something really cool, and I'm just trying to think. There's this show on Netflix called Blood of Zeus.
Okay.
It is 8 episodes long, and each episode is a half hour. So this means that it's roughly, what, like
4
maybe 4
hours.
hours long? Is this something that you think you can handle for our next chat, or do you think you'd need more time?
I don't know. I can let you know.
Yeah, because this Blood of Zeus is, it's a take on Greek mythology, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I think you'll like it. It's from the same people who made Castlevania.
Oh,
When I
cool.
say the same people, totally different writers, the animators are the same.
Oh, okay.
So the actual feel is going to be a bit different because it's written by different people.
Right.
Animation style is the same. So, combat's going to be pretty visceral.
Oh, so it's like an anime version of like Greek mythology kind of.
Well, it's like a small story based on Greek mythology that has all of the relevant gods that you would think of when you think of Greek mythology.
Cool.
But the story is of a character that interacts, like it's a mortal character that has an interaction with these gods that totally changes his life. But it's really good. I think you'd really like it. It's just going to be like a 4-hour investment. Yeah, that's the only downside. But I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
Week. Maybe maybe I could also read White Fragility in case I don't finish that.
Yeah, so I guess we can shoot for fragility. Or actually shoot for Zeus, and if we don't do it, we could do fragility.
Okay.
All right. So I've already watched the whole series. I just finished it recently. I actually did it in 2 nights, 2 sittings. I watched half of it in one sitting, watched the second half in another sitting.
Okay.
It was just, I was just that glued to it.
Cool.
But yeah, it's called The Blood of Zeus, Greek
Okay.
mythology. It's like, oh man, I forgot how much I love Greek mythology.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's totally interesting about how mortals and the gods interact, and it's totally about like political scheming and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting.
Cool.
But yeah, it's called The Blood of Zeus.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess we'll either be talking about D'Angelo's book or The Blood of Zeus, depending on what Andrew can get through during the week. But yeah, we'll be doing this back on my channel again, and it'll be around the same time as well, as usual. And like we said before, I'm going to migrate a lot of the content that we created on the Mixed Mental Arts channel into this channel. So it will be available, and I'm going to start working on an audio version of our video podcast here.
Sweet.
All right, man. Do you got your plugs for the day?
Yep. If people want to, they can check out my YouTube channel where Dusty and I are talking tomorrow, along with Parker, who has talked with us and I on on my channel a few times before, and we're going to talk about a book that I wanted all of us to discuss that was written hundreds of years ago called Memoirs of Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it's basically about firsthand accounts of people who believed that they had seen werewolves and experienced witchcraft and seances and ghosts and all about alchemy and divination and these fascinating things that people got into. And I do lots of other videos on there too. I was telling you about how popular our chat on From Dusk Till Dawn was last week. It was like shockingly way more popular than I expected, which is awesome. And I make some political videos and others about like fantasy and stuff like that. And people can also check out my blog if they want to, which is at mindgasms.bplifetime.com, where I publish chapters of the novel that I'm writing and short stories and poems, also blogs about history, philosophy, politics, religion, culture, and travel as well. And people can also check out my Patreon page if they want to give me money as well, which is at Mindgasms, which I always greatly appreciate. And I'm on the social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as Andrew Mindgasms. And then on Facebook, I'm at Andrew Meintzer. And my last name is spelled Meintzer. Oh, I hope Dusty didn't just get kicked out there. Are you still there, Dusty? Oh,
Yeah, internet.
out there?
Yeah, internet.
Okay. That's good timing. I just finished giving all my plugs.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe this channel, which is the Woke Centrist channel. I will be, from now on, publishing all of our chats on this channel as we're retiring the old Mixed Mellow Arts channel, as basically the podcast has been retired. So all of that content's being retired and archived. Don't worry, that stuff will still exist. It's not being taken down. You'll be able to listen to all the old interviews and podcast episodes and everything else. The Facebook group is also now just an unofficial Facebook group. I probably will eventually have to make some type of social media space, I guess, for my stuff, but that's kind of like an afterthought because I don't want to manage another social media space.
Yeah, that's why I've never done that for Mindgasms.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the butt. If someone else wants to do it, I'll let them do it. I really don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just migrating everything over to this channel. That's the live stream related things. I'm actually keeping all of the anything that Hunter appeared in. I'm actually going to keep that over there on the Mixed Mellow Arts page because he was in it, so it's an officially sanctioned Mixed Mellow Arts thing. And some of the other topics that we covered, like anything that he's appeared in, because we've talked about so many different things, some of them tangentially related to Mixed Mellow Arts, and some, our book and movie chats are just stuff that we've talked to with the community that kind of shared, similar interests, but aren't specifically like Mixed Mellow Arts themed things. So, yeah, everything's going to be here. I'm going to try to promote this so that anyone who's been listening to the old channel can migrate over here. and, get the same content that they have. So I'll try to keep up with everything. So if I hear that, hey, what happened to the live streams? I'll try to get you the information you need so that you can go ahead and see these. Because I know there's like a couple regulars. So that's why I posted on Twitter, because most of the regulars do follow me on Twitter. So I'll post this stuff on Twitter to make sure you guys know. At least I posted this specific show on Twitter. I usually don't use Twitter, but because of the transition, I've used it because I know some of the regulars follow me on Twitter. So I posted my stuff over there. But yeah, like and subscribe. I am still continuing to promote the Facebook group. Yeah, you can still check it out there. It's not as vibrant as it used to be, but it still exists, and we still get in arguments over shit.
Yep.
So, so
I'm sure there'll be arguments about this.
Yeah, I think there was already a comment. I haven't read it, but the argument would probably think that we're promoting it. Well, we're obviously not promoting this book.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read the comment yet.
I see that comment here. Yes, we did talk about that commenter. They said, did you guys talk about Candace Owens saying social programs to help black people is racist, makes them look like helpless kids that need bailout? Yes, we did talk about that.
Yeah, we talked about that. And I also talked about that welfare isn't race specific. It's offered to every single bracket under a specific poverty line.
Yep.
So if you're going to make that argument, you have to make that argument for everybody that receives it.
Yes.
And then if you're going to make that argument, you can't make the case that because of this, this race tends to do that, because it's egalitarian. It's offered to all races.
It can't just be boiled down to welfare bad. Yeah,
you can't blame the decline of the black family structure on welfare if it's not affecting other family structures of different races in the same fashion. You have to find what the other variable is that's causing it. So that's my argument when it comes to Candace Owens' assertion there. And I know Soul kind of takes a more nuanced stance, but it's also a thing that I kind of say that's contrary to Soul. But I like a lot of Soul's points as well, but I'm just saying that's just one of the things I disagree with him on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I guess we'll be wrapping up. You guys have a great night, and thank you for joining.
Yep. Adios. Until next time, everyone.